Dr. Daniya, we can't hear you.
Hello.
Yes, that's great. We can't hear you again. Sorry, can we just check?
Just a minute. Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi,
No.
everyone. Let me introduce
Uh,
myself.
yes, okay. You're good
My
now.
name is my name is Dr. Daniya Magdum, and I'm pleased to welcome you all on behalf of the entire team at RYS University for this webinar and panel discussion on a topic that is truly the need of the hour. Today's discussion aims to answer some pertinent questions on every dentist's mind. Are we doing enough? How much is too much or too little when it comes to the safety of our patients, our staff, and ourselves in a pandemic? Therefore, 8 steps to pandemic proofing your practice will be discussed in more detail by a team of experts from around the world. A wise man once said, being challenged in life is inevitable, but being defeated is optional. So let's try our best to defeat this challenge. And with that being said, let me introduce you to our esteemed panelists for today's discussion. Each of our panelists is positioned at unique vantage points since they're at different phases in the pandemic. From UK to Australia and even across India, they've come all together to share their current take on the pandemic. Firstly, we have Dr. Deepak Muchhala, a man who needs no introduction, a stalwart. He currently serves as a treasurer for IDA and is also a key member in representing the dental fraternity in ICMR, the foremost authority on protocols in India. Then Dr. Chitnis. He's, as we all know, the founder of DBM and also the owner of Dental Concepts with 3 practices across the UK. Dr. Adarsh Pisharodi is an eminent orthodontist and successfully maintains a sprawling private practice or is dentist on the Sunshine Coast of Australia. Dr. Nikhil Deshpande, whom we all know as an acclaimed implantologist and a champion of global implant education, being the communications officer at ITI. And last but not the least, our very own Dr. PNC dentist, Dr. Diksha Batra, who runs a thriving practice in Mumbai from the past 11 years. And for our dear viewers, the webinar is solely for you. So be sure to ask as many questions you can in the comment section. And we have a little surprise for you for one lucky winner of the 40 minutes. So keep sharing, interacting, and stay tuned. Now it's time to begin our discussion. And I would like to welcome our first speaker for the evening, Dr. Diksha Batra, also known as the Painfree Dentist. She's a prosthodontist and an implantologist in Mumbai and has been practicing in Bandra for the last 11 years. Dr. Diksha is the founder of India's first all-dental NGO called as Angel Dentist Network and co-founder at RYS University. She's been hard at work through the entire course of this pandemic, and today she has an important milestone that she would like to share with all. The stage is all yours, Dr. Diksha.
Thank you so much, Danya, for that glowing introduction. And as people roll in, I want to thank all of you for this overwhelming response to this webinar. We have many registrations, and we're just waiting for all of you to join in. There are many special people in the audience today, and I would like to start thanking all of you for being here. Even if you watch this later or you watch it live with us, we really appreciate you being here. Most of all, of course, I'd like to thank our panelists who all share one thing in common with each other. Of course, besides being rock star dentists, they have all been instrumental in my journey through the pandemic. I've had a really hectic few months, and that's to say the least. Let's take a glimpse of my journey from May to now. From forming protocols with Dr. Muchhala for the IDA videos, I went on to create a 21-day practice reboot challenge on Facebook. As part of that, we shared a great live interaction on aerosol generating procedures with Dr. Nikhil Deshpande. The next series, of course, as most of you must have seen, was infection control and a contactless patient experience with Dr. Adarsh Pisharodi, all the way from Australia. The challenge, The challenge ended, and we assumed that by the end of it, we would all go back to practice. But it was only June. And some of us resumed, of course, but many of us still stayed back home. Finally, in the month of July, we conducted the Power Hour lecturing series of Dentistry 2.0 with Dr. Manish Chitnis from the UK. I spent August and some of September collating all my thoughts. I felt after all of this, we still needed to address the fear, insecurity, and uncertainty for dentists and patients alike. With the situation that had spiraled out of control, it is now time to take back that control and decide to completely reset, to redefine what is this new normal and what is our response to this pandemic. Pandemic proofing, the title of today's seminar, was an idea that I thought would hold us in good stead if ever something like this were to happen again. What this means is that we manage our systems, our protocols in such a good way that if this challenge or any other comes our way again, we are completely prepared to handle it and we become immune to it. So you must have known that there were practices that remained open throughout the lockdown. And that made me wonder what were they doing that many others didn't. After attending lectures, webinars, reading articles, referencing, I decided to compile everything in a way that is a quick reference guide, something we can implement in our practice, a first of its kind book that holds the answers to all the numerous questions that all of us have faced from time to time. It's an ebook, and as we progress today, we will be discussing all the key aspects and how you can get your hands on it. The structure of this book addresses 8 important areas of our practice that require resetting. As you can see on the screen today, we have these 8 important steps that we are going to talk you through as we go along. That's why we decided that today's topic would be these 8 important steps. I believe if we focus on these 8 things, we can actually pandemic proof our practice for any future challenge. I'll quickly run you through what I mean by each of them. The pandemic, that chapter includes all the information about the virus and testing that we as dentists must know about. The practice itself covers all the important medico legal risks, the financial decisions, as well as the risk assessment that we must be taking. All of these will beautifully be covered by Dr. Manish in his seminar. The personnel, I think we've all faced personnel issues, team challenges, people have left, we've not been able to retain people, and that's another thing that comes in Dr. Manish's segment. We also have premises to worry about. We all went through a phase of decluttering. We wanted to make sure that our clinics were restructured to be pandemic safe again, to make sure that we are following all types of infection control procedures. And safety proofing our clinics was what we cover in premises. We know we've all been in controversies about PPE and protection, and that's what we address in the protection chapter, which actually covers everything from physical protection to surface disinfection to even environmental disinfection. All your queries answered there. The processes section is basically how do we implement all these things? How do we put into practice and make our staff follow these systems and make them protocols in our practice, especially that of infection control. And that's the one that Dr. Adarsh will be talking to us about later today. Another important chapter, the 7th one, is patient interaction. Our communication and response to our patients, especially kids and older adults, is really critical. And this is something that we address with even live interactions with other experts. And finally, the most important of all, actually being able to perform procedures in the practice. Be it emergency procedures, be it treating a positive patient, or even going ahead and practicing confident aerosol procedures. This is something that Dr. Nikhil will address later on. And these are the 8 steps that you are going to be listening to today. You have an information overdose coming your way. And please grab your pens or your iPads and get noting. I would like to call upon Dr. Muchhala, the man who started me on this journey a few months ago, and someone who has always guided me through my years in dentistry to come and speak about this book and officially launch this humble offering to the entire dental fraternity. Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Diksha. At the outset, let me say that I'm extremely happy and excited to release this book, which you have taken such great effort during this particular time, where it was, I would say that what normally I say is that in this particular time of pandemic, is the time of knowing, doing, and acting rather than just procrastinating and discussing the negatives of this pandemic. But
Absolutely.
you came out positively through this, and you made that extra effort to write this beautiful book, which I would say that it's written in such simple language with definitely scientific studies and references that you have included in that. And also, I would say that this becomes a ready reckoner to start our practices if you have already not done so. And if you already have started, it'll definitely become kind of a guide for you to understand what our esteemed speakers and authors who have written in this particular book and have mentioned to help you get over this fear psychosis that is surrounding all of us in this
Absolutely.
few months. Uh, One thing which I would like to mention at this particular time is, please, all of us should not listen to any rumors and remove the fear and start our practices. I think all of us who are listening, everyone out there who's listening, please remember there is nothing to fear. Lot of things which you have understood through webinars earlier or through this particular book is what is going to help you in ensuring that the protocols that you start in your practices will enable you to protect yourself and your patient during this difficult times that all of us are going through. And all of us, it's not as very rightly Diksha mentioned that she has brought in a panel from all around the world, and all of them are dear friends of mine also, Nikhil, Manish, and others, all of them. And they will obviously, they have given you a perspective of not only India but also throughout the world, the problems that are occurring throughout the world, to ensure that all of us help each other in ensuring that we restart our practices in a very simple way. And this particular book, which Diksha has taken such a great effort, I congratulate you, Diksha, and your whole team for having done such a wonderful job with this particular book. And definitely, a lot of credit should go to even Rohan, your husband, for giving you that much of leeway to take out time and write. And it's a very difficult thing to write a book, and
No,
to do
and
that in such a short time in your career. It's a great thing, Diksha. So congratulations for that.
thank you.
And I would say that there is no friend as loyal as a book. And when a book like this is well written, I myself who have read it, I find it short. So you can imagine that how wonderful this particular book is. So Diksha, it is good to create, better to create and publish, best to create, publish, and monetize. So may you, Diksha, be successful in all these matters, and may all your endeavors come true. So with this, I
Thank you.
officially launch this book of yours, Diksha.
Thank you so much.
So it's for everyone.
Thank you.
Let's reset pandemic proofing your dental practices. And the best thing, I have read this particular book, and especially I like the part about the practice, the concerns, the reasons, the challenges, and also the best thing about the personal, which I the chapter on personals was before 2020. What you've written here is hire, train, retrain, grow, Manish, and then you mentioned after 2020, re-inspire, return, retain, and retrain, which is so very true. If we really want our practices, Nikhil and Adarsh have done wonderful job as far as sterilization protocols the Adarsh has mentioned about in Australia and in India. And Nikhil, no doubt, uh, everything that you have mentioned in this book is wonderful. So, Diksha, congratulations, and over to you
Thank
once again.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Muchala, for doing the honors, and a huge congratulations to you, Dr. Diksha, for launching such an amazing book at a time when it's most needed. I'm sure a lot of us will benefit from it. Now, I would like to call upon Dr. Nikhil Deshpande, who is the implant expert amongst all of us. Dr. Nikhil graduated from Mumbai but has achieved many designations from New York and Germany. He is currently a fellow at ITI and also the communications officer for the ITI leadership team. Dr. Deshpande brings in a wealth of experience to our panel and will be speaking in detail about dental treatments, aerosol or otherwise. Over to you, Dr. Nikhil.
Thank you, Dr. Daniya. I hope I am audible. Uh, Congratulations, Diksha. The book is finally out, and I hope that everyone gets a chance to read it and benefit from it. It's a proud privilege and honor to be part of this panel, be part of this book along with Sir and with Manish and others. Like others said a few minutes ago, that it's really a proud feeling for us to contribute to a book like this at a time such as this during the pandemic. And to everyone who's joined in, thank you for joining in on a Sunday evening. I believe that this will make a definite change in the way you approach your practice during this pandemic and even further afterwards. So quickly getting on to what I have contributed in terms of the aerosol generating procedures. Things have been updating and upgrading as we speak, and we are gathering more and more information. We have more and more evidence that is coming up. And so, as far as the aerosol generating procedures is concerned, there was initially a large amount of fear about creating aerosols because dental practices, even routine dentistry, starting at the hygienist's job, requires aerosol generation of some kind, of some degree. And we had, in fact, shut down all our aerosol generating procedures to begin with, just to be safe. But now we can say that after 4 months of having practiced regular routine dentistry along with aerosol generating procedures, we are confident that there is definitely a way to minimize the damage or the possibility of damage or the possibility of infection spreading through aerosol generating procedures. So just to summarize quickly, of course, the best thing to do is to not generate aerosols as much as possible, because we know that if a patient is a carrier, obviously we will not be treating any symptomatic patients. But if the patient is a carrier and is not symptomatic, we do not want to create any aerosols. And the two best ways are one is to not mix air and water through pneumatic devices like our aerator handpieces to switch to which are 20:1 with irrigation, where you have no air in the system, so there is no mixing of the air and the water together. Another way is, of course, to use the rubber dam wherever possible. And I believe that using a rubber dam and using electrical handpieces with irrigation is the best way to simply avoid having any kind of aerosols produced at all. So that's the best way to deal with aerosols. Of course, ultrasonic scaling procedures will generate some amount of aerosol. And if possible, we should try and avoid that, switch to hand scaling procedures if possible, as far as possible. Also,
we may have lost Dr.
Yeah.
Nikhil.
Yeah. I think we'll carry on with the
No
next
problem.
speaker, with Dr. Adarsh Pisharodi. For all our viewers, Dr. Adarsh is an orthodontist. Dr. Adarsh, you're on mute, so we can't hear you.
I was just saying maybe wait another couple of minutes.
Yeah,
Maybe
we'll
Nikhil will
just
come
wait
back.
a minute more
Hmm.
and then we'll
Okay.
continue if at all we
Yeah.
He
don't
must
have.
have pressed the wrong button like I did.
Yeah.
No, and I think
There he is.
yeah, there he is.
I
Perfect.
did press the wrong button.
Exactly.
We almost had you replaced, Doctor. Sorry.
Yeah. It's all right. It's all Wi-Fi issues, I suppose.
I know. No worries. You
Yeah.
look, you're
Yeah.
looking much more clearer now. So your
Is it
Wi-Fi is
now?
improving. Yeah.
Yeah. I just took a makeup break, if you don't mind.
It worked. It absolutely worked.
Yeah. So I hope that I don't know where I got lost in the way, but I'll just get back quickly so that we can save on the
Yeah,
time.
absolutely.
So the best way is don't create any aerosols by using electrical handpieces and the rubber dam for any kind of restorative procedure. That way, everybody is safe and we don't have to worry about this. If you are going to create aerosols by using the aerotor handpiece or any other kind of pneumatic device like your three-way syringe or air polishing, air abrasion devices, then I believe the suction is the most important device that is going to help you remove whatever aerosol is created from its site into a safe device where it can be discarded after those those particles are sterilized, maybe through a HEPA filter or through UV light. So we need an intraoral suction, which is a high volume suction. The suctions that we typically have on our chairs, the Venturi and the low vac, don't really help us remove any aerosols. So the high volume suctions, which are the good quality high volume suctions, are really helpful in reducing the aerosol generation from the site itself. Uh, we try to take the high volume suction as close to the point of generation as possible and as clear a path as possible, not touching any tissues. So if it's in contact with tissues, then obviously the aerosols will be left to spread out. As far as the suctions are concerned, I think we have to test our high volume suctions, to make sure that they are really efficient. Uh, if they really produce that kind of pumping action. So we need to do those tests now more seriously than before. And last but not the least, if the aerosols do escape the oral environments, then we have the extraoral suctions, which are now in vogue, so to say, and we kind of depend on them to make sure that these aerosols that escape the oral environment and the high volume suction get sucked out through these extraoral suction devices. Now, the American Academy of Oral Surgeons has come out with the recommendations of these suctions. So, if possible, we can share them eventually. Now we have it. Just a couple of days ago, we had that recommendation where they have mentioned a few machines which can be safely used as extraoral suction devices. And of course, if you don't have an extraoral suction device or an efficient one, and you fear that these aerosols have left the oral cavity and they have spread out and then eventually settled down into the operatory and other things in the operatory as suspensions, then the best way is to wipe them off clean with sodium hypochlorite solutions like we should for every patient. Uh, Another care we take is to have some kind of air purifiers in the operatory so that we can, uh, replace the air every few minutes or every few hours. And if you have a air purifier that's about 10-15 air changes an hour, then your operatory is probably ready to see the next patient safely in about 20 to 30 minutes. I know this is all sounding very different from the way we used to practice before, but this is what we now call the new normal. I understand that if you don't have a multiple operatory clinic, only a single chair practice, then these are kind of inhibitory procedures. But unfortunately, this is the reality of our time, and it's better to be safe than sorry. Uh, Again, we've tried to put down everything in the book, and I think that Diksha has done a really good job of gathering the facts and then integrating those facts into a book so well written that I think that this is a guideline for anybody who is practicing, not just dentists, even hospital practices or corporate practices, for them to implement as a, as a proper guideline for following up after the pandemic. So whenever you start, I think this book is really, really a good way to guide yourself. It's become a checklist sort of thing, I think, in my practice now, since Diksha has sent it. So we are checking, from the book if we've done everything that is mentioned in it. So I think it's eventually going to become some kind of standard. So I'm very happy that I'm part of this book. I'm very happy that Diksha got me involved, because then, I also started thinking in that direction. Otherwise, you're just kind of happy settling down with what you can do rather than what you should do. So the book is a straightforward guideline about what must be done. It is evidence based. I see that there are references whereby we have recommended to do certain things based on some research, some science. So it's not just what I think we should do or what you think we should do. It's something that we must do now to make sure that our environment is safe for us, for our staff, and most importantly for our patients. So congrats, Diksha. Thank you for getting me in, and I'm sorry about the Wi-Fi as usual. Typically,
Thank
my
you.
sins catch up to me eventually. So that's what happened, I guess.
Let's not go by sins, but thank you for your contribution and for stimulating those ideas and thoughts always. So, and thanks for a great presentation, because I think you've really summarized well for us, because the biggest fear is aerosol generating procedures for everyone at this point. So I think some really good hacks in there. Thank you once again.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Over
Dr.
to you.
Nikhil, for all your insights. I'm very sure we can take a lot of what you've explained and then treat our patients hopefully with a little less fear in the new normal, as you said. And just a little note for our viewers. I hope you guys are enjoying so far. And if you have any questions for any of our speakers, please write them down in the comment section and we'll get back to them by the end of it. Now it's time for Dr. Adarsh Pisharodi to speak and give us his knowledge. For all our viewers, Dr. Adarsh is an orthodontist and an owner of a flourishing dental practice in Australia. He has been practicing for over 10 years and is registered as a candidate at the Royal Australian College of Dental Surgeons. With over 23 years of experience in the field of dentistry, Dr. Pisharodi brings a lot to our panel. Let's all welcome Dr. Adarsh.
I'll unmute myself first. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Daniya. Thank you for the introduction. And congratulations to you,
Thank
Diksha, and your team. Pandemic Proofing Your Practice. I think it's a great book and it's a great initiative that you've taken. I also thank you for inviting me to this panel, because this is quite a unique moment for me, because I've got my mentor, Dr. Deepak Muchhala, here as a part of the panel, and I've got my colleagues Manish and Nikhil, and then I've got my student, that is you, in the whole panel as well. So that's a matter of great pride and joy for me too. Look, without wasting too much of your time, I will get into what I'm supposed to be doing today. I'm talking about processes, which is in chapter 7 of the book. If once you all read the book, you can go back to that chapter. And what I'm going to really touch upon is infection control, basically reprocessing instruments in your office-based dental practice. This little thing is very close to my heart, because I think just like you read that question under my screens, are we doing enough? I just feel that we can do a lot more. In fact, I did a presentation or a webinar with Diksha was it in June, where we talked about some processes and reprocessing of instruments and my thoughts. And I actually got a comment in that webinar. I'll have to go back to that comment. It was from Dr. Milind, who said that he's very happy that we have such sessions, and basically less than 10% of dentists, he thinks, in India are using the authentic Class B autoclaves, as we call them. And I was a little bit surprised at the number because I was working, I had the great privilege of working with Dr. Muchhala straight after my BDS, and we had the state of the art equipment from the word go. And I remember using Class B sterilizers in the late 90s, and I thought it was just the norm, but apparently it's not, and that comes as a bit of a shock. But I believe things are changing now, and we're here to emphasize to you that yes, Class B is the way to go. I think the main difference here is that a lot of people considered the Class B to be the gold standard in infection control and reprocessing instruments, but I want to rephrase that and say Class B is now the minimum standard. You'd be surprised to know that a lot of beauty parlors and tattoo artists here who have Class B sterilizers. So I think we dentists are being left behind if only 10% are using Class B sterilizers. It's time to throw away your pressure cooker autoclave because it cannot predictably sterilize all our instruments that we use in dentistry. We all know that, but for some reason we refrain from adopting some principles that we should. I just took some notes on what are the few things that should be looking for in Class B sterilizers. It is still the most effective and efficient way for us to reprocess instruments in office-based practice in dentistry. What we should be looking for, I believe there are a lot of Class B sterilizers available in the market. There are manufacturers and salesmen who will try and force, I would say, their product on you. But these are the few things that you should be looking for. You should be looking for something that has a dynamic air removal system, which means it should be capable of producing a pre-vacuum before you run the cycle. The second thing is you should be able to visualize and record the three main parameters that tell you that your sterilization cycle is passed and complete, which is your time, temperature, and pressure. Now, this needs to be visualized and recorded, which means it can be in the form of a printout, it can be in the form of a sticker that's printed out, it can be in the form of an SD card if it's easier for you, but that is a bare minimum. And the third thing you need to see is that the autoclave has got has a reasonable period of a drying cycle so that your packages, when they come out of your autoclave, are dry. If they are not dry, it means that it's not passed and needs to be reprocessed. When I say reprocess, doesn't mean chuck it back in the autoclave. It needs to be taken out of the packaging and the whole process needs to be followed again. So these are the few things that you need to be looking at when you buy a Class B sterilizer. And I repeat, it is now the minimum standard and not the gold standard. Another thing that Diksha wanted me to touch upon is packaging of instruments. Do we need to package our instruments? Yes, we do. Essentially, we've all learned you got the critical instruments, you got the semi-critical and non-critical. Critical, of course, are instruments that we use to puncture soft tissues or get into the bloodstream, extraction, implants, periosurgeries, endodontic treatment in a vital tooth. All of these are critical instruments. So in an ideal world, they need to be bagged and tagged. What I mean by bagged and tagged is they need to be pouched or they need to be put in a cassette and wrapped. There needs to be a Class 6 chemical indicator that confirms to us that the sterilization process has been completed, and if possible, they need to be tagged. And tagging is something that I've discussed in my webinar with Diksha, and it's also a part of the. I don't know if it's in the book, but if you do go back to the webinar in early June, you will see how we do what is called the batch control identification and tagging. Semi-critical instruments are all the other instruments we use, like mark mirrors, tweezers, restorative handpieces, and all of those things. Now, the basic minimum you need to do is you need to pack them or package them. They need not be tagged, and you can have a Class 6 indicator, but not with individual bags. You can have it probably in the tray where you have your semi-critical instruments. Non-critical instruments are like your face bow, what do you call it? The Facebook devices, the Willis gauge, things that touch the skin. But when you take your BP, for example, your blood pressure, those things you don't need to actually bag them. They can be sterilized by other means as well. Now, I was talking about what's the minimum standard. So all of this is the minimum standard. You can go on and build up on these minimum standards. You can do batch control identification as something that I discussed, where you can actually track an instrument down to the patient, to the cycle number, and all of those has been discussed in my webinar earlier. Diksha also mentioned that yes, we live in a cost-conscious society, and that I need to discuss costs of implementing all of this in the practice. And there is no doubt that implementing these protocols, if you're not doing them already, may look like it's going to increase your costs. But really speaking, this is the basic thing. When you start an office-based dental practice, you really need to be looking at this as a minimum. You may cut down on your Italian tiles or a great painting, but the autoclave needs to be of the basic standard, because this is what we're putting into your patient's mouth, and what wouldn't go into your mouth shouldn't go into a patient's mouth. If you look at it, each autoclave will give you about 10,000 cycles. So even if you run 2 or 3 cycles a day, really, that autoclave should last you 10 to 12 years. And that's a reasonable investment for what it's going to do for you and the level of security it provides you. I think the last thing I was talking about was that at this time in the pandemic, people are scared to visit the dentist. Diksha has, in her book, given us the COVID safety plan. It's something that we need to discuss with our staff, something that we need to display in our practices, so patients know that we are completely aware and on top of the situation. I think as dentists, we are already doing a lot better than a lot of other professionals. A good COVID safety plan, as written by Diksha in the book, should be adopted by all practices. So that's a good thing to go back to before you get back into your practices. Part of the safety plan, I was talking to Diksha yesterday, and I was just talking to her about simple things like just basic hand hygiene. We as dentists are really good with hand hygiene, and you can just implement your basic hand hygiene routine methods. You can actually print them off the WHO website. They have templates on how to hand rub, how to use hand washes, what are the 5 moments of hand hygiene before you touch the patient, before the procedure, after the procedure. All of those things, if these are documented and put in your practice, then this can help us all overcome this pandemic and come out successfully, and come out with the patients having full confidence that what we are doing is the right thing. And I guess this book will lead us to what we want to tell our patients. I guess that's all I have to say for the moment. Congratulations, Diksha, and thank you for having me in your panel.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Adarsh was kind enough to share some resources with us yesterday, which involves, visiting a website and actually watching a few videos on hand hygiene. This will help you actually just, convince your patients as well that you have a completely safe practice. So I'm going to share those links with you, in the comments. And I think by the end of this, you guys will have enough and more to go back and do tomorrow. So thank you, Dr. Adarsh, for the kind resources and the very relevant presentation of not only standards, but also cost. I think in our market, we need to be, in any market, we have to be able to balance that. So thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Adarsh, for briefing us on all the protocols. That was truly very helpful and insightful. And I really feel like it's about time we start doing more in regards to infection control at our clinics. Now we'll move on to our fourth speaker, Dr. Manish Chitnis. Dr. Chitnis has a successful career in dentistry for the past 23 years, and after gaining experience in India and UK, he decided to run his practice in UK, where he owns and manages dental concepts along with his wife, Dr. Shilpa. With 3 state-of-the-art dental practices around the UK, Dr. Chitnis has also founded DBM, a platform where he and others like him share their knowledge and resources with budding dentists. Dr. Manish has a real passion for training and lectures intensively across UK and India. Today, he will be enlightening us about finances and some serious discussions in practice management. Over to you, Dr. Manish.
Thank you, Dr. Okay, good. Um, if you hear the dog barking, I don't know if that. Can you hear me first of all, Diksha? Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
we can
Okay.
hear you.
So if
Yeah.
you can faintly hear the dog barking, our guests have arrived, and I'll let them welcome themselves, and I'll see them later. So a very
Thank
warm welcome and hello to all the viewers who are watching this either live or recorded. And it's a very proud moment. I met Dr. Diksha probably a year ago. Um, a young entrepreneur wanting to learn, wanting to do things, and I'm just amazed with the speed, the amount of work Diksha has done in the last probably 9 months, and I've been party and observing every day actually. And we have a weekly meeting where I get all the updates, and Diksha is speaking most of the time. We all listen, and she has done some phenomenal work. I'm a person who is more audible. Instead of reading books, I listen to this. But last 2 days, yesterday and today, I have been through the whole book. Obviously, it's a big book which we can go back again and again and again and get more out of it. But I'm going to say, in the old days when I used to be a teenager in India and doing my school studies, there was was it a Navnit digest or something, which was like a guide. So I don't know if
Yeah.
Adarsh and Nikhil remember,
Yeah, yeah.
those 21 questions, and you used to go back and say, "Aaj exam mein ye aane wala hai. This is what's going to come back." And this book just is like a gift where me, my team members can just go back and check what we need to do. As rightly mentioned by Nikhil, we are checking every time, are we on track. So first and foremost, congratulations Diksha for such a fantastic project. Nobody has thought of this. You've just gone ahead and done it. It's a big milestone, and heartiest congratulations to you and your team. I'm sure Rohan needs a pat on the back as well. So well done. Uh, Anybody who's listening to this, it's a no-brainer. Just go and get it on Kindle, and it becomes a ready resource. And I'm sure a lot of people, right from Dr. Muchala, Adarsh, Nikhil, everyone has contributed immensely. It's launching today, and I'm sure in the future there are some hard copies coming out as well. So I really look forward not only to the Kindle version, but even keeping the hard copy with us, because it's dentistry 2.0, which means the future of dentistry. And I think a lot of chapters will relate for a very safe future for all of us. The safety is paramount, and Diksha, I think, has ring fenced every topic in the 8 steps, which all go towards safety for everyone, right from us to our patients and team. So, thank you. I do have 5 minutes, and I thought 5 minutes to summarize the finance topic and team. I just have 5 words to go through. On a Sunday evening, if somebody is with a pen and paper, please feel free to write it down. But as always, we say cash is king, and my first word obviously is cash flow. So I think we did a webinar on this, and it's out there, which is our cash flow calculator, which is very important. It was very meticulously followed by many, including me, in the COVID situation, where we were trying to calculate our cash and see how we are going to survive, etc. Then we got back to stream. Then we started working, and suddenly the foot went off the pedal, which meant that we are now spending, doing things, and we don't know if the cash is enough. So my first quick tip to everyone who's listening to this is, please be in control of your cash. Make sure you know you have 3 months of contingency. If you don't have 3 months of contingency, then work hard towards building that 3 months of contingency for your operating costs. So a very quick tip: cash flow, cash flow, cash flow, because business can be profitable, but if cash is unavailable in the bank, businesses can slip off and close. So be very mindful. The second word which comes to me is costs. And when I wrote down the word costs, I put into bracket the sentence, or 2 words, is responsible spending. And when I say responsible spending, when you say costs and expenses, is one thing is we can overspend, or we can be cheeky to underspend and actually be unsafe. So as a business owner, as a dentist, you need to be safe, your team needs to be safe, your patients need to be safe. So if costs and expenses are towards your PPE, your high vac, your air purifiers, that's a must. And I think dentistry has beautifully evolved with this post COVID situation, where you can see that if you spend and invest in the right equipment, life is becoming easier, the rooms are fresher, the air purifying systems are working very, very well. So it's actually a blessing in disguise which has come through. But if you do not maintain or manage the costs well, then it can be trouble. Yeah, so that's the second. The third thing is complacency. So as always, people know I would speak in mnemonics. So there are three C's by now. One is cash, second is costs, and the third is complacency. And it's related to me, and it's my reflection post-pandemic that complacency can set in. Oh, I will just use my PPE later. I'm just okay with my 4-ply mask. That kind of complacency can set in. And I think the word in the bracket which I wrote down is accountability. If you're not accountable to yourself, you're not accountable with your team, if the team is not accountable back to you, complacency can set in. And as a team, looking at the safety for yourself, your team, and your patients, again, don't let complacency set in, and do not go off track, because this virus is there to stay forever. There might be new ones, we don't know. And what Diksha mentions in the book is almost like a ready reckoner to keep going back to say, are we on track? And complacency sets in. I think peer support, team support, and actually going back to resources like this, which are there in Diksha's book, become very, very important, because memory can fail, but systems won't fail. And I think what Diksha has given all of us is systems, resources, systems, resources. And if the team can keep going back to that, complacency will never set in. You'll be on top of your game, and you'll be the safest dental practice to go back to. That's the third C. Fourth C, which is very important, is communication, which is happening now. So Adarsh has spoken, Dr. Muchhala has spoken, Nikhil has spoken. We have communicated enough to yourself to give you the info, for you to absorb, pass it on to your team, and move on. And that's the same thing with teams. If communication is weak, if the communication is not on track, people can feel insecure, people can feel uncertain, people can feel really, really worried, anxious, and at risk. And I'm sure everybody's seeing this, where team members are leaving practices, they're wanting to go and work in retail spaces, they don't want to be in the dental practice. And I think the important part is, if you can communicate strongly to say, no, we are the safest place to be because we do all the precautions. Somebody yesterday asked me, oh, Manish, the second lockdown might come up. Can we finish my dental work quick? And I said, I'm not closing down anymore. Even if the second lockdown comes in, the dental practices, the medical services will stay on, because we have the right armamentarium, we have the right safety, we have the right systems. So there is no chance we can stop. So if you communicate well to your patients and your team, your business will survive. So make sure your team is really inspired, energized with your communication. And that brings us to the last C, which is, I'm going to call it captaincy. So I wrote the word control when I said the last one is, am I in control of my ship? And Shilpa corrected me and say, control means you're a boss, but a captain is a leader. And that's what very important in this post-pandemic. Are you a leader, or are you a control freak? A leader will take the team with them. A boss will probably demoralize the team. So where are you as a team leader? Are you the captain, or are you the boss, is very, very important. So quickly summarizing, cash is king, costs, very, very important, responsible spending. The third aspect is, are you communicating very well with your patients? And that the complacency is not setting in. And the fourth one is, are you managing the costs well?
I think we're losing Doctor, but I think the last three C's he was talking about were complacency, captaincy, and communication.
Okay.
So until we have him back, of course, we have these five C's to really think about and ponder over. And as he was, anyways, ending, do we have him back?
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Meanwhile, Diksha, I got your book.
Oh, great. Thank you. I think that's our first sale, I'm guessing.
Is
So
it?
thank Great news. So we'll wait for another, say, 30 seconds and we'll probably move on to the next speaker. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
I think I'm going to actually talk about the fact that Dr. Chitnis and me were involved in this program together, the dental assistant training program. And that's when I had all these reflections about the team, which he's so rightly mentioning, because the pandemic is really testing us on all fronts. And being a boss is probably old school now. Being a good leader is what we all need to follow. And that's a hard lesson that even I've learned. So, hoping to implement it even through the new normal and not allow complacency to set in. So, looking forward to that. I think he's reconnecting. Yeah.
I think he's back.
Dr. Chitnis, can you hear us? Not yet.
Not yet.
So I guess in another world, we would have all met for a book launch in a nice conference hall. But I mean, maybe another time. But for now, we have to put up with these little Wi-Fi issues. So, Dr. Manish, do we have you back?
I think he's still having issues.
Okay, so we'll move on to our next speaker. Daniya, I'll leave the floor to you.
It's time to pass on the mic to our final speaker for the evening, Dr. Deepak Muchhala. Dr. Muchhala has been synonymous with IDA and dental education for over 20 years now. From conducting numerous courses across the nation for thousands of young dentists just like me, to being the only person who has an MUHS certified year-long aesthetic program in India. Dr. Deepak has mentored proteges around the world with the help of his philosophy. He has served as a treasurer in IDA for the last 20 years. And along with all of these, he also maintains a private practice in Mumbai since 36 years with a focus on aesthetic and implant dentistry. It is truly an honor to have you with us, sir. And a little fact for our viewers, Dr. Muchhala has also written the forward for the book. And I would like to ask you, sir, just to summarize the discussion with a few simple mantras that all of us can follow.
Doctor, you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you very much, Daniya, for those kind words. And each one out here in the team has put in whatever they have mentioned is what is exactly the norm which we have to follow right now. So to summarize very quickly and try and give what I would say is mantras from my side to ensure that the first and foremost, what we need to understand is that each one has specified that there are two things that we have to address. One is protecting ourselves and our staff, and next is protecting the patient. How we are going to be doing that in our practices is the key word that we have to understand and implement all those protocols. So I'm not going to, in fact, it'll take a very long time. So I'll just read out all the mantras that would help us be safe along with our patients, and probably expand a little later on some other time, on all those things. First and foremost, what I would, as this book also gives, I would say each and everyone access reliable information. That's absolutely important when you want to restart your practices. Avoid panic and rumors. That is going to ruin you. That is what is going to hamper in your practice. Just follow the right people. Just follow the right information. Take the recommendations from your local, state and government and public health offices, or if you are in different countries, your local associations who have laid down the guidelines for you and to follow them. Most important, according to me, which is going to help each one of us in our practices, is implement teledentistry and triage procedures, which will really help us in removing all those people whom we feel are going to come into our practices and either infect us or our staff. Screen everyone entering a dental healthcare facility for signs and symptoms of COVID 19. And that is what is going to really help us in our practices. Next, I would say, as a mantra, is be safe and follow all the protocols that have been written in this book and whatever has been mentioned by each and every speaker. Masks play a very vital role. It's one of the things, one of the mantras that we have to follow, not only in our practices. What kind of a mask? Probably some other time, but definitely N95 if you're following if you're doing all the procedures in your practices. Social distancing, even when you are in your practices, maintain social distancing. Try and avoid as far as possible to your patients not to talk too much. We know we love to communicate with our patients. No doubt this is the time when we want them to talk a little less. And if you have to, maintain that little social distance and talk with your mask on, which also will help considerably in reducing a lot of things, the fears and fear and psychosis. Hand wash, enough has been talked about the hand wash, so I think I don't need to mention more about that. That's one of the mantras. For yourself and your staff, good balanced diet with different colors of fruits and vegetables included also is an important part of maintaining good health, which will ensure that you are in good health to not get infected. Hydrate yourself with minimum 6 to 7 glasses of warm water in the day and a minimum amount of sleep of 7 hours, I would say. That also will help in boosting your immunity system. That's what I would say. And increasing your immunity definitely by taking a lot of zinc and vitamin D as a daily intake is also a very vital part of the mantras that I would want to give. Steam inhalations twice a day to reduce yourself. And I follow a lot of yoga and pranayam and also jalneti or nasal passage cleaning, which as a dentist, if you follow, I'm sure that will reduce your viral load in your system and will help you to not get yourself infected. Increase your lung capacity by at least minimum of 30 to 40 minutes of walking every day, and also of pranayam if you believe in it. I'm a big believer of yoga and pranayam that will really help you in reducing, as you know, we very well see in all the videos of yoga, that if you can do some of the exercises which are shown by some of the experts in yoga, they tell you that if in 1 minute you can breathe 90 times in and out at a very fast pace, you're never ever going to get COVID. So that is what's going to help you increase your lung capacity and reduce your chances of getting. As far as dentistry is concerned, all dental healthcare professionals should gargle, according to me, whether it is with povidone iodine or whether it is with chlorhexidine or whether it is with hydrogen peroxide, whatever you believe in. But I believe in povidone iodine. At least I would say that when you enter the clinic, and if you are very long working hours, every 4 hours, that you need to do that, swish it in your mouth for about 30 seconds. That's extremely important, that to prevent yourself from getting infected and your staff also. And in fact, when Manish mentioned about, that we need to not be the boss and we need to be a captain and we need to induce some kind of faith in our staff, what we have done is, and as because we have, through the idea, we have these insurance schemes which we have come out, and wherein you as a team member, as the head of the team member, and your staff can get yourself, and we've got all our staff insured for the COVID policies. So that also gives some kind of an assurance from your staff that you as the captain is taking care of them. So in case, because we know that all our staff are not coming from a kind of background where they can afford to get, if they get infected, to get hospitalized and get themselves treated. So if they have a policy which covers them for almost about 2 lakhs of rupees, that is enough for them in case someone gets infected. So that's a good thing that one needs to think about when we talk about our personal and when we talk about our staff. Then no doubt about the PPEs and rubber dams and all. Nikhil and Adarsh and all of them have spoken enough about it. But Diksha wanted to mention that should we reuse our PPE, which is, as we all been talking about, that cost-effective factor that which Adarsh mentioned, because he had worked here in India and then he shifted to Australia, so he knows that India is a cost wherein we need to take into consideration, because India is spread over tier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cities. I would say it goes up to right up to number 10, wherein you do not have the kind of practices which you want to see. But people have to practice, and people should practice also over there and help even those Adivasis and all those people who are who are staying in those kind of areas. So obviously you cannot afford to have a 7-star practice out there. But being cost effective is something different, and being foolish is something different. So you have to take into consideration that whenever you're doing any kind of a procedure which is going to bring about sufficient amount of aerosol and sufficient amount of leakages, at least minimum 3 feet or 6 feet around you, ensure when you are doing that, especially with blood and patients who have not had enough of triage done, please remove your PPE. Do not reuse them. I'm not saying that you cannot reuse. There are ways and means to reuse your PPEs also. But we have to understand how, when. So some other time, Diksha will get into that in details about how to do that, because time is a constraint. We know that. And as far as uh, what is new, as far as the protocols all around the world, because I interact no doubt with ICMR, I interact with ADA, and because the president is a dear friend of ours. So, all around the world, we have been interacting and we are getting. So we have come to a conclusion, all of us, that the transmission is not so infectious as we initially thought so. Please remember that. All over the world, dentists have started working. Billions of people have safely visited the dentist in the past few months for full range of dental services. With appropriate care, dental care should continue to be delivered during this global pandemic or other disasters. And we have to remember that dentists and dental practices, where we have taken the survey and we have asked all the bosses all around the world, they have said that we have never been a source of cluster of infection that have occurred through dentists. Please remember that. So there is no fear to visit a dentist. We are safe if we follow all the protocols, if we follow what we are supposed to do. Dentistry is as safe as going to any other doctor. I would not want to name different medical fields, but we as dentists, we know that we have been, forget about the N95s, but we were the only ones that even when this pandemic was not there, we always had a mask on. Name all other fields where we have been. Where have they ever worn a mask when we have visited them? No, we take more care than others do. So, as a dental professional, I'm very proud to say that we have taken the lead in our profession and we have shown the way to the world that we are safe places to visit. Only thing we need to know that the virus is more in the throat and the lungs than in the saliva. Saliva has so much of bacteria that good bacteria, that the virus, if we feel that is going to take the place of the bacteria, is a myth. So please remember that. It is the saliva does not have that much of viral load. I have enough references for that also. And practices, as I said, that have started all around the world. So please do. We need, no doubt, this is a very dynamic situation, and we need to continuously have good research which should come out and which should be available for all of us to ensure that we read them and follow them and continuously upgrade our practices. So Diksha, once again, congratulations to you, and thank you very much. And I hope that each and everyone who's listening will go back with uh, clear minds and understanding that dentists are safe places to visit.
Thank you, Doctor. That was truly motivational, and I think that's why they are called the mantras, because I think everyone needed that much needed dose of practical things to do, as well as the inspiration to go back to practice and not worry. Because as you say that, a dental practice might be safer than being out in the environment. I mean, people are catching the infection from anywhere, but a dental practice, at least we're taking so many more infection control protocols. So it's time to leave that fear behind. And thank you once again for that beautiful and gracious presentation, as well as the very well worded forward in our book. And what I wanted to discuss with the audience today was that we watch so many webinars. Even all of us have spoken at so many webinars, but the sense that I always had was that we tend to forget this information, or we tend to confuse this information. Every 5 to 10 minutes that the speaker has spoken, it was packed with so many points that we can actually go back and implement. But come Monday, we tend to forget. We can't hold all that information in. So what if we had a dossier, a kind of a reference file, where we could actually refer back whenever we wanted to? And maybe something like this is available on your phone. So that's exactly what we tried to create for you. And our book, Let's Reset, Pandemic Proofing Your Dental Practice, is designed for being that ready reference for you actually when you need it. And we realize that it's not just you as the practitioner, but your entire team that needs to keep referring to these documents till they become a system or a protocol in your practice. And that's the only way that we're going to come out of fear and uncertainty and really embrace the future that we have ahead. So also, because it's a book on COVID-19, we want to make sure our phones are sanitized when we're using them. We don't want to be not following infection control protocols. But I wanted to give you a little bit of a first look on the book and what it really covers. So it's a lot of reading that I made all my panelists do today. So thank you for that. It's about 275 pages in hard copy. And you will see over 90 illustrations through the book. Now, the reason why we've illustrated it so much is because an illustration will condense the information, make it easily recognizable for you. And then we have a simple checklist that all the doctors have been talking about so kindly. These are the kind of checklists that we will be, you can just sort of print on your Kindle. You can even just go to the link and download this. These infographics are going to help you in actual implementation. So you don't really have to think too much. You just have to follow it. If you want to customize this, of course, you can go ahead and do that as well. And we kept talking to you about resources. So I just want to point out in the book where you can see a resource. And it's highlighted by something called a Let's Reset resource. You will see it as a green tag. And I don't seem to have found any, but I'm going to show you some. But you will see a green tag which says Let's Reset resource. It's on all your Kindle copies as well. And each and every link, like how Dr. Adarsh was mentioning, was, to go back to his interview on infection control, you can actually just click on the link. And as Dr. Muchhala rightly mentioned, that, all the references are also given in every chapter. So this will help you sort of realize that it's evidence based, and it's easy for you to keep re-referring to till maybe we're out of this situation, or hopefully always to keep your systems and protocols airtight. And one more special feature is that the end of every chapter gives you, like an action box. So things that you can go back and do immediately in your practice, which will help you take action for that particular day. So whether you want to do it as, something that you want to follow weekly, or you want to do daily with your staff, you could go ahead and do that absolutely. I'm going to show you one of our action boxes, which help you go ahead and pandemic proof your practice. So this was just something that we wanted to let you know in terms of being able to use the book easily, and also have it as a unique interactive guide for you. We did not want this to be limited to the pages of a book alone. We wanted it to be a constant conversation that goes on, because as we know, the pandemic is a completely dynamic situation. So I assure you that we will, like Dr. Muchhala said, have multiple interactions in the future. It's not possible to cover everything in an hour. And the book is now available on Kindle, as Dr. Nikhil has, actually gone and bought one. So we know our links are working and the book is out. So thank you. And the hard copy, you can actually order it, and we should be able to deliver it to you soon. But do pre-order it in the links given on the YouTube comment. So if you would prefer a hard or a soft copy, both would be available. So many of us still, probably want to hold a hard copy and keep using it. So even that is there. And I think we have all heard all the beautiful speakers actually condense that information into a few minutes. So I really thank them for that. And it's truly a wealth of information that we have in this webinar today. And while everyone was speaking, I could see the questions and comments flowing. So I'm going to open up the floor for Q&A. Dr. Daniya, you can take us through some live interaction with the audience.
Yes, I would love to. We do have a lot of questions coming in. Dr. Manish, Dr. Manish is not there. So I would go ahead with Dr. Adarsh. This is a question that's come where people are asking to scale or not to scale in a COVID-19 situation, or basically in any pandemic.
Dr. Adarsh is on mute. I think because it's related to aerosols, we could also take Dr. Nikhil's take on it later.
Yeah.
Dr. Adarsh.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Look, we in Australia, we are bound by our governing body, which is the Dental Board of Australia and the AHPCC. They set out guidelines on what you can and can't do. It's very clear, very transparent. At the moment, we are far ahead of the rest of the world as far as dentistry is concerned. We are on what we call level 1, which means we can see and do any dental procedure except on COVID positive patients. So essentially, we are on level 1. Once we get to level 3 and 4, that's where you. Okay, to answer your question, once you get onto level 2, you can't do scaling. So one step higher, and all aerosol generating procedures are completely off the charts. But once we get to level 4, we practically cannot provide dental treatment safely in an office-based practice. Like, for example, you need negative pressure rooms and stuff like that. We can't potentially have in an office-based practice. But the simple answer to your question is yes, we have different levels, and we go by the regulations. And if we go to level 2, that's it. At the moment, Melbourne, Australia is at level 4 since about 3 weeks. They are the only ones who got into the second wave of the pandemic. So they've been closed for about a month. But we in Queensland have been pretty safe. Borders have been closed, so we are still on level 1, and we have been since May 2020. So we are pretty lucky.
Dr. Nikhil.
Nikhil, you want to add on to that?
If should we scale or should we not scale? There are two answers to the question. If you are scaling without any soft tissue reflection or flap reflection, I think it's safe, and you can make it safer by using a split dam procedure. We see scaling mostly in the lower anteriors, in the lingual areas, which is commonly the areas which require scaling very frequently, as opposed to any other area in the mouth. And we've been doing this with a split dam, so as to avoid more salivary content in the aerosol that will be created. There is no doubt that if you use ultrasonic scaling to scale, you're going to have some kind of aerosol. So yes, my answer is yes. Deepak sir said, we've started everything. We are trying to make it as safe as possible, and I think we've been successful so far by implementing all of the precautions and guidelines that we have been following. So a split dam for the lower anterior section, which may be one of the requirements for someone who has a lot of deposits. Uh, the rest of the mouth, I think, if you're using a high volume suction, and if you're using an extra oral suction, it's clearly possible to do that. And when the question was put, whether to scale or not to scale, I assume it was with an ultrasonic scaler, because if you're going to use hand instruments, which is a lost art, I believe, but any of the senior guys, Adarsh and I, through college, we've been through doing the hand scaling, and Deepak sir, of course, is my dad's batch, so they definitely know how to do it with the hand. And if everyone's forgotten about it, this is a good time to relearn it. It's as effective probably as the ultrasonic scaling, just a little harder work, So put your backs in to it, and do it with hand in case you're scared about using the ultrasonic scaler. So
Wow,
yes,
that's some
scale, yes.
serious hard work. That would be some serious hard work.
We've done enough of that.
Yes, so in the era of air polishing and air abrasion, I think to have someone scale with hand is like going back to your slip joint handpieces from your pneumatic handpiece. But I guess it works. But if you're going to reflect a flap and do a mucoperiosteal flap with scaling, then of course it's going to be a little difficult. You'll have blood splatter everywhere, and instead of the aerosol, I think the splatter will become a bigger concern, like it would be with or without the pandemic. And in that case, I think if I have to really reflect a mucoperiosteal flap for subgingival deposits, I'm going to use hand mostly. Yes,
Absolutely.
we'll avoid using ultrasonics. Yeah.
Thank you so
We
much.
have, thank you, Dr. Nikhil. This question is directed at Dr. Diksha. We actually have a lot of people asking as to when and how can they get their hands on a hard copy. So if you could just, throw some light on that.
So we are posting a pre-order link for you where you can register your interest for the hard copy, and the hard copy goes into process from tomorrow itself. So in the next 2 weeks, we should be able to get it to you. The only thing is being COVID, the logistical, actually depending on your location, we're asking for a period of about 2 weeks. So what you can do is register on the pre-order link. Links are already up. My team has put together the links. So please, if you can't find the link, don't worry. Just leave your interest in the comment box below and we'll connect with you. And I do believe, yes, all of us do need hard copies. Just about 2 weeks to get you those hard copies then. Right? So I think that should answer. And until then, of course, we have your Kindle copy, which are very cost effective as well. And we can actually probably show you how to get your Kindle copy. So I think we have a short video to show you how to get to the Kindle copy. Can we have that? Yeah, so it's really simple. Just type into Amazon, type in my name. It'll ask you for a billing address. This is what the cover looks like. Please don't confuse it with any other Diksha Batra that you find. So that's the one you can recognize the cover, and that should be an instant. Dr. Nikhil just got it as we spoke.
Yeah, I
So
think somehow the Kindle copy is also very useful to, just click on the link inside the Kindle and it'll take you straight to the information or the connect that there is, rather than a hard copy. I mean, for a
exactly.
hard copy, you would have to copy paste or
Yeah.
type in the address to get the link to whatever has been written down. But the Kindle
Right.
one is so much easier. I think you can just directly go to the link to find out the added information or the research behind the guideline.
Absolutely. And we plan to keep updating our Kindle version because we know these conversations are going to go on, and We want to get you the latest information as fast as possible. So you can also be part of the entire community and keep writing to us. The Kindle copy will also take you to our Facebook group, which is Learn Pain Free Dentistry, where you can actually interact with all of us, as well as all the speakers on this panel, whenever they're doing lectures with us. So please do post your questions even after the session. We'd be happy to answer it for you. And the idea of creating a book on an ebook platform is so that we are all staying connected. The COVID is not a conversation that ends with this webinar, right? We're all in it and we're all facing it. So that's why an ebook is also something that you can instantly access. I hope that answers your the viewer's question, Danya.
We just have one final question for Dr. Muchhala, which is a question that's on all our minds. What does the future of dentistry look like to you?
It's very
Okay.
apt.
So this is something which I keep on telling everyone, that I have seen, I mean, the phases of dentistry right from time. I mean, people will not believe when they will hear this, that during our student days, we never worked with gloves. Can you
Yes.
believe that? We never worked with gloves. We have gone from that to what we have today, the latest technology. And I always keep on telling people that if you want to succeed in dentistry, invest in dentistry. That's the only thing that you know right now. I'm sure that people have different ways and means to make money, but when you want to get the best out of who you are, then start putting your money back into dentistry and it will. I keep on always mentioning when I lecture that people keep on asking, that the doc, how much am I going to make in dentistry? I said, whenever a patient walks into your practice, your eyes should not blink like the casino machines, where you have those $3 signs, and a ting, 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 suddenly. That should not be there in your eye. If you don't have that, if you put your best of what you're going to be doing in your patient, you have achieved it. Money will just follow you. And the future of dentistry, pandemic or no pandemic, it is just wonderful. I have heard a seminar which was conducted by one of the most leading person in the world, wherein to get into that seminar also is extremely difficult, where he was going to talk about what is the future of the world and the economy. He was basically is an economist. So I just wanted to hear him. And he has put medical field and dentists amongst the first three top uh, professions which are going to come out of the pandemic faster than any other professions. So, guys listening out there, the future of dentistry is just great. It's just fantastic. Don't get bogged down by, I know it's very difficult to say this when you are staying at home for almost 6 months, and you may have your thinking of, so many of them may be thinking of closing their practices, but don't do that. The future is great for each and every one of them. This is not just pep talk. These are hard facts which I have gathered from different, as I said, listening to different people, different. And in fact, I've already given an idea to Diksha about our next book, which we will talk about that a little later on. And that is
Plus,
where
you've already spoken about it on this platform, so now we're committed.
yeah. So we have, in fact, I have done a lot of research on this. Uh, I have put in enough amount of time, as Diksha has mentioned in different panels that I've been there. So I have put in an extra effort to even find out about the future of dentistry. And it is absolutely in safe hands with all the dentists. Main thing you have to remember is that a person who changes with time, a person who adapts to the different things that are coming their way and adapting them into their practices as and quickly and as fast as possible. Where Manish mentioned about the cost part of it, it's not that you start spending like a fool, but you know that these are certain things that you need to spend on. And when you spend on that, I assure you that even when we started our practices where people were really scared of coming to the dentist, when they know that they are in sure hands of what they are going to be following in the practices that they come to, in safe hands, absolutely, they will get whatever you tell them to do. So, future of dentistry is just great.
Thank you, sir. That's really good to know and pretty relieving as well. One last question for the session for Dr. Nikhil. Ms. Shubhra asked, we all buy suctions which are considered high vac, but from a COVID-19 point of view, how can we test what we have is enough?
Yeah, so this is this is interesting because we end up buying high volume suctions, which we have to just trust the manufacturer or the distributor or the person we acquire it from in terms of whether it is high volume or not. So there is, in fact, quite a bit of research that the U.S. military has done about high volume suctions and what's a good or what's an adequate high volume suction is what the answer is. And the adequate high volume suction is something that gives you a CFM of about 4.5 to 7.5. By CFM, I mean cubic feet per meter per minute. Sorry, so cubic feet per minute CFM. If I have to simplify that, how much water in liters can your suction machine suck out in a minute is something that you need to think about. So liters per minute is approximately what you should think about. Now, if you want to convert CFM to liters per minute, I think the conversion factor is about 28 to 30. So what it means is 4.5 to 7.5 CFM would convert to about 125 to 225 liters per minute. Yeah, so that's a lot. And if you had to test this practically in your clinic, it's hard to get 100 liters of water somewhere, and keep sucking it for a minute. So what we typically do to test a high volume suction, if someone brings it for demo or something like that, is we take a bucket of water and put 10 liters of water in it. 10 liters isn't that much of water. And we dip the suction tube directly into the bucket. And if the suction can suck out 10 liters of water in 5 seconds or less, that's my high vac suction. That's an adequately high vacuum or high volume suction that will help me, keep the field completely clear, whether it's a surgery, whether it's a lot of restorative procedure with a lot of water coming in, aerosol that is being generated, so that if I keep it close to the site of generation, it can suck out a lot of the aerosol as it flies off the site. So if someone brings you a high volume suction and claims that this is like a proper high volume suction, it's just a simple test. Takes 10 seconds. Yeah, take 10 liters of water and see if it can suck it out in under 5 seconds. Yeah, so you just have to count from 1 to 5, and if it can, then that's really a really good high volume suction.
I just need to add to that is that brings about the question of that when you have to use the high vac suctions, you have to start practicing 4 and 6-handed dentistry.
Yes.
Unless and until you do that and you train your staff to exactly use where the suction tip should be to
Right.
ensure that whatever they're sucking is at the right site and the right place is what is going to help.
Yes. I think
Great.
there is no option post pandemic to have just two-handed dentistry anymore. I think we need the support and help from our assistants, from our associates. We are moving more towards 6 and 8-handed dentistry now, from just four-handed.
Absolutely. I think more and more dependent on a good, solid, strong team. And I'm glad this question about suctions came up because I think there has been a big controversy in the market always about which suction, extraoral, intraoral, high vac, and very often we are misled. So I think this was something great to kind of take us through very practical tips, be it PPE, be it suction, be it infection control. I think we've had a very wholesome discussion. in the time that we had together. So I think with that, Dania, do we have any more questions?
No, I think we've answered all of them, most of them at
Great.
least.
Great. I think Dr. Manish's questions we will have him answer as soon as he's back online, and I'm sure he can answer them in the comments. But as we said, the conversation doesn't end here. And today, on the 13th of September, this pandemic is still raging on. We in India itself have more than 4.75 million cases. 1 million of these are in Maharashtra. We know now that we must learn to cope with Corona. As we return to practice, our aim is to never be vulnerable again. I am sure that this discussion has stimulated all of you towards taking action for a better future. Let's be hopeful but proactive. Let's keep walking through the storm as our rainbow lies on the other side. My heartfelt thanks to all our esteemed guests. This panel is indeed a unique one and one that was hard to get. I'm so glad that everybody graciously agreed to come and spend this Sunday evening with us.
My
And
pleasure.
for me, it's always going to be a very special occasion with this special people. And thank you, Dr. Muchhala, Dr. Chitnis, who's signed off, but I'm grateful to him for being here, Dr. Pisharodi and Dr. Deshpande, each of them a stalwart in their own right. It feels great to have reconnected with all of them. And thank you to the wonderful contributors of the book, all the speakers on our live. It takes many people to bring alive a dream. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Daniya, who's been a wonderful host to all of us. And there's been my team at the back end working very diligently through the lockdown. Dr. Mansi, Pooja, Preeti, Shubham, Simran, Ankita, all of you, thank you so much. They have worked tirelessly over the last few months. And of course, my husband, thank you guys for mentioning him, Rohan Batra. He's been really instrumental in getting me to see this dream, to actually see the light of day. And for the book and the launch, it has really been a personal milestone for me. I'm humbled and grateful for all of you in the audience who've attended and even those who are going to watch later to be part of this momentous occasion. I hope the book helps everyone. And thank you for being an amazing audience. I really welcome you to your pandemic proof future and looking forward to seeing you all again. Until next time, please keep watching and stay safe. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye bye.